Saints last week interviewed Anthony Weaver, the Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator. They interviewed Mike Kafka, the Giants offensive coordinator. And then over the weekend, as they were hoping to start planning some interviews for this week, they heard from Joe Brady, the Bills offensive coordinator. He said, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to be staying in Buffalo with this MVP candidate, with Josh Allen. I'm going to see it through into 2025.
This is Haley Holby, and you're listening to the Sports Shark Tank on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. I am your host, Brendan Kaufman, joined by Donovan Gibbs and Joe Simile. We got a lot to discuss today, folks. The NFL Coaching Carousel, the poor New Orleans Saints being the last team without a head coach, some general NBA discussion, Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox, where's he going to end up? Is he going to be remaining there? Who knows? We're going to be talking some Knicks after they absolutely left the Memphis Grizzlies gobsmacked after their performance last night. And then we're going to let off some steam with another instance of Ticked Off Tuesday. Before we get into any of that, gentlemen, how are we feeling tonight?
I would say we are doing great. Just came back from the city. And when I came back on the train, that's when I found out about the news regarding De'Aaron Fox. I can't wait to talk about that later.
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's always great to be in the tank with you two lovely gentlemen, and I know that we're going to have some very nice discussions, maybe even some potentially heated discussions.
Pun intended.
Oh, you two. You two little rascals, getting your giggles out. We can't be giggling when we're talking about the NFL coaching situations all throughout the league, because right now, 7 teams need a new coaches. 7 teams need a new coaches. 6 of them got it. And now we're stuck with just the New Orleans Saints, who, if we were looking at their cap situation right before the broadcast started, and it's not looking pretty. I could very much understand why nobody seems to want to take that New Orleans Saints job, because they did this thing where they backloaded all their contracts without actually being a contender. So they just backloaded contracts thinking that they could win. And then they went 6-11, 7-10 this season. Probably worse than that, if we're being honest. But I don't really understand what their long-term game plan was, because they're deep in cap. Nobody wants to go there. Their quarterback is Derek Carr. Their team isn't very good. I can't think of a worse situation to be in the NFL than these New Orleans Saints.
I would say that seeing the cap, they have a 52,317,537 problems to be worried about due to the fact that this is how much they are over the cap limit for this year. So I can understand why being the head coach for the Saints would be a tricky job due to the fact of how teams in the NFC South have that standard of this year could be their year, because out of all the divisions in the NFL, the NFC South has been the most parodied-esque division so far over this span of this decade in the 2020s, with a bunch of teams that having a chance to win it all. We saw it last year with the Falcons making a run during the earlier part of the season, being 6-3 and leading the division till the Bucs were able to swipe it under their noses. But this Saints team, even though Derek Carr has his own issues and Chris Olave having his injury concerns, having 6 concussions already in his young career, you can't dismay the fact that Alvin Kamara is still putting up great production. He's still in 1,000-yardage season, all-purpose back. And this defense was playing pretty well at the end of the year under Darren Rizzi. I don't understand why the Saints didn't re-sign Darren Rizzi, seeing how the culture kind of shifted the minute he became interim head coach. They were in a bunch of close matchups, especially that game against the Commanders where they unfortunately lost, but we saw them play they had a certain level of heart when they're played that we haven't seen since week 3 against the Eagles. So this team is currently in a state of limbo that I never thought I would see the Saints come in after a decade from 2010 to 2020, where this team had a stretch of dominance near half of the 2010s. The Saints team still in bright side. They still have Kamara. They have a perennial all-pro tackle that they drafted with Pete, wasn't it? It was what was his name? I gotta look it up. But they have a perennial all-pro tackle, and this team is currently in limbo that a lot of coaches might not be interested. Their biggest mistake was not signing Darren Rizzi at all.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that game they had against the Commanders, but then they also followed that up with a 34-0 stinker against the Packers. And I mean, you look at this Saints team, and there's not much there to be excited about. On top of the cap, it's just a severe lack of talent. I mean, their second leader in scrimmage yards this year was Juwan Johnson, and he had 548 yards from scrimmage. I mean, that is just pitiful. That's just a terrible situation to be in. They have no weapons that they're happy about. They don't have a quarterback of the future, right? I don't think Spencer Rattler's that guy. Derek Carr. I mean, the wheels are starting to fall off the bus there, and it is just a terrible situation to be in. I mean, I don't know. As Brent said, I don't know who would want that job.
But you can't take away the fact that they do have the 6th pick in this year's draft. So maybe they could make a change at QB. There are available QBs still in this draft outside of Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders.
QB
at number 6?
Yeah, at number 6, you're not going to end up getting a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. You would have to trade up to get one of those guys. And the QB isn't the only problem with this team. I mean, you have about, 49 problems on that team. You look at the 52-man roster.
52 million.
52 million problems financially, but even on the roster, I mean, you got, 3 good players on that team right now that are locked up, for the near future that you have faith in. I mean, it's just a terrible situation to be in. I don't think there's a franchise in a worse spot in all professional sports right now.
Well, I don't know if I would say that. I feel like you could definitely name at least 1 or 2 teams that are in a worse spot. But in terms of the NFL, I can't name a single, there's nobody worse. They're going to be, the problem is that they've been too competent these past few years to really truly tank. This was the first year where the bottom fell out and they sucked because past couple of years they've been 9-8, 8-9, 8-8,
and they started the year 2-0, blowing out teams by 40 points, and they where everything just changed.
Then they started 2-0, ended up 2-7, fired their coach, won a couple of games in a row, and then they just couldn't. At that point, once you get to the point where you're starting Spencer Rattler in a game, and if you're a team that's trying to win, I think you should just give up. And there's a man in the New Orleans building that I would like to blame for this, and his name is Mickey Loomis. He's been the general manager for a long time, notable cap expert, but I got to be honest, at a certain point, you can't stop. You got to stop pushing it back. At a certain point, you just have to say, hey, we are going to have this negative cap space. We're going to have no cap space. We're going to tank, and we're going to do it right. We're going to have 2 years where we are just awful and get rid of all this cap so that we can actually sign talented players and sign our good draft picks. Because at this point, they can't sign, and they can't sign free agents realistically. They got to get rid of all this money that they don't want, that they gave to Derek Carr because for some reason they thought they could be competitive, even though they probably could have kept Andy Dalton on a cheaper deal and been about as competitive as they have been with Carr. Let's be honest.
In all honesty,
it's just
it's not even just Carr's contract. I'm looking at their active roster cap right now. Derek Carr's leading the way with a $51 million cap hit at 34 years of age. Cameron Jordan, $20 million cap hit, 36 years of age. Taysom Hill, who got injured during the ending part of this regular season, and we don't think he might be the same player again after that devastating.
He might retire.
$17 million worth of cap hit as well. So they're in their top 3 cap hit guys are currently age 34 and above. So a lot of this money is going to aging players, older than Nick Viravanti. But
older than 1997.
But yeah, and their cap is a lot of their money is being allocated to guys that are aging or in the latter half of their careers. We don't know if Cameron Jordan has another year left, or Derek Carr, or Taysom Hill, or you can also say about DeMario Davis as well. He takes a chunk of that cap at $12 million, and he's at 36 years of age. A lot of this team is gone the ending part of their career. So maybe since a lot of them are moving out, that cap is going to move with them. So that's the only silver lining I can see for it if you're a Saints fan right now, outside of the fact that Alvin Kamara doesn't look like he's planning on leaving anytime soon. And outside of the 6 concussions, we've seen what Chris Olave is capable of if he has a QB that can throw the ball to him without him trying to overreach for it and get hit out of nowhere by a blindside safety. This team has a minimal amount of promise. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen this year. Maybe around 2026. They're kind of their rebuild's going to take at least 2-3 years. But I feel like give it some time and they're able to move these older players out. They're the sky's the limit, really.
A guy like me says, why not just have fun with it? I mean, they're not going to be good. So why don't we just throw Taysom Hill at quarterback full time?
Well, I don't know if he's going to play again because he did tear his ACL.
He lost a lot of his ability to move around. The thing about Taysom Hill is that he was a Swiss Army knife due to the fact that his mobility. So they could put him at multiple positions because he has the lateral quickness to win on the offensive side in those positions. That's why they put him.
I'm trying to see Spencer Rattler line up in the slot, catch a pass from Taysom Hill.
That would be nasty.
honestly,
Derek Carr could throw a chop block.
Honestly, when you said let's have fun with it, I thought you were talking about their coaching hire because I'm thinking like, who would be a really funny coach for them to hire? The first guy that came to my mind was Rex Ryan, but I feel like that would only be funny for the Jets. It wouldn't really be funny for anyone else. It'd just be
Rex Ryan with this younger defense that they have outside of Demario Davis. They do have some key guys on defense. Kool-Aid McKinstry had a really good rookie year, I would say, at corner. Pete Warner's a guy that I look at linebacker who's also pretty good. Luis Fuaga was the tackle I was talking about earlier. He's going to be a perennial all-pro. Him and Joe Alt were the steals of the draft when it comes to offensive line prospects. And Brian Brees is also one of a rising defensive tackles that, with a little bit more development, could break out and have a better year than what he had last year. He did put up some numbers at the end of the year that did surprise me.
Mm-hmm. All these talented players, and yet still nobody wants to coach the Saints.
The thing is, if you look at their contracts, it's not even a lot of money. A lot of these contracts are only at most $5 million.
I think the Saints just got to throw up something on Indeed. Just say, hey, we need a coach. Can someone please do the job? Because nobody wants Mike McCarthy right now.
I feel if Mike McCarthy's interested, because I know he's still out on the market as well.
He's probably the best option left.
But if he says no, I don't see why not go back to Darren Rizzi. Because this team was moved. When Darren Rizzi came in as the interim head coach, this team played way differently than before.
Yeah, normally I'm not the type of guy that's like, you should hire the interim head coach, because usually the team might like see like a spark under him, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a great head coach. I think the Saints should go for him this time, not necessarily because I think he'll be a big success. I genuinely don't really see anyone else who'd really be willing to take that job. He already did it for a little bit. Why not just keep the ball rolling? If he stinks, you can him the next year. You get a new guy that'll hopefully actually want to coach the Saints. And then if it works out, then it works out.
My question to you is, why do you think Mike McCarthy would be that guy? Mike McCarthy is not a coach that would be sticking around for a rebuild. Since Mike McCarthy was on the Packers, he's always been a win-now coach. He hasn't really been on a team that has struggles like this till last year with the Cowboys. Outside of that, the Cowboys were a continuous 12-win
seasons out of them.
They were a continuous 12-win team, and when he was on the Packers as well, they were a continuous 10 to 12-win team as well, and made multiple NFC Championship games. So if you're the Saints, it's rough right now, but there's a lot of young stars for this team that you have to keep your eye on. And once this cap space is out of the way in the next 2 years, they might be on a stretch of dominance like we saw in the latter half of the 2010s.
Yeah, and speaking of a stretch of dominance, when we come back, we will be discussing some NBA general discussion. Would have been nice to bring up the Knicks here, but unfortunately, that is not the order we are doing it in. You are listening to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.
All right, my children, Grandfather Rock is here. Hi, this is Chris McIntosh. Join me every Sunday evening at 5 for Rock and Soul Gospel. It's the best rock and roll on the radio. And you can hear it right here at 88.1 FM, wcwp.org or the WCWP mobile app. We are LIU Public Radio.
You can support WCWP with one simple click. Log on to WCWP.org and click on the support tab. WCWP is your home to LIU Sharks Athletics, The Rock Show, and much more. Visit WCWP.org and click on the support tab. It's that simple. WCWP is a non-commercial radio station, and your support goes to help students and our staff. Visit WCWP.org and click on the support tab. Thanks for listening to WCWP and LIU Public Radio.
He was suspended for 7 games earlier this month for conduct detrimental to the team, then 2 games for missing a team flight, and finally an indefinite suspension on Monday as he was set to return to face the Magic.
You're listening to the Sports Shark Tank on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
I began to think I understand.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.org. I am your host, Brendan Kaufman, joined by Donovan Gibbs and Joe Simile. The NBA, the universe, the world of basketball in the United States, and just North America, period, it's been heating up recently. Sacramento Kings player De'Aaron Fox, where's he going to go? What's going to happen with him? Gentlemen, let's discuss this general NBA discussion, starting with you, Donovan.
Yes, the official news is out that De'Aaron Fox is looking for a way out of Sacramento after Sacramento's another disappointing start to the year, being currently the 9th seed in the NBA Western Conference, which is shocking because they just won last night against the Brooklyn Nets. And
Is that impressive?
Everyone wins against the Brooklyn Nets.
My apologies.
Not the Wizards.
They're not the 9th seed. They are right now the 10th seed. But after the win against the Brooklyn Nets are apparently one of the teams that De'Aaron Fox is interested in going to. And with 9 days left in the trade deadline, with De'Aaron Fox looking for a place to go, Jimmy Butler is currently wanting his way out of Miami as well. There's teams that he's also interested in, as the Spurs and the Rockets were rumored to be trades as well. De'Aaron Fox is a tricky guy. He's currently 29. He's still playing the best basketball of his career. Him and Malik Monk have been one of the more underrated duos when they both play in the NBA, because him and Malik Monk, since Kentucky, they both have been their chemistry has been amazing. So this De'Aaron Fox trade, seeing him go away from his running mate in Malik Monk, definitely saddened me. But if he can somehow find a way to make it onto the Houston Rockets roster, I will say right now, and I'm looking at the camera when I say this, the Houston Rockets will be the 2025 NBA champions. If he can,
it's a bold take.
If they can make it to that Houston Rockets roster, I feel like possibly a trade for Van Fleet, Tari Eason, and possibly multiple picks, because the Houston Rockets right now, they're currently stocked on picks. So if they're able to get 2 of those picks out, preferably second round picks, because I know second rounders are just selling like hotcakes nowadays when it comes to NBA moves. A starting 5 that includes De'Aaron Fox, Jalen Green at the 2, Amen Thompson, who's been on an absolute tear. He had 33 last night against the Boston Celtics and had the game winner, and he's only 21 years of age. And then Alfred Sengun, who has been playing like a player who's definitely going to be playing the All-Star game come All-Star weekend. Unfortunately, he won't be a starter, but he'll definitely be a reserve. This team has a lot of potential to make noise. And seeing that Ime Udoka has been an amazing coach so far this year, if it wasn't for Kenny Atkinson and his role in Cleveland's success, Ime Udoka would have been my pick for Coach of the Year so far in the 2025 season. They could go all in with De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox makes this team better and gives them that push to possibly make noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's an interesting take, Donovan. I don't know that I share your high prospects on the Rockets, but I do think that De'Aaron Fox is one of the most interesting players we've seen on the trade market in some time. And we mentioned one of the teams that he was potentially rumored to favor is the San Antonio Spurs. And I think that would be a wonderful fit. I mean, you pair him next to Victor Wembanyama, and then
And
that's
Stephon Castle, who plays like a playmaker.
yeah, that could be something really dangerous. I mean, we already see. I mean, Chris Paul averages 8 assists per game next to Wembanyama, and he's not a scoring threat anymore. You know, he's 300 years old like Nick Fioravanti, and he
400 years old like Nick Fioravanti.
Sorry,
Come
yes.
on.
But De'Aaron Fox, he creates so much leverage because he's arguably the best downhill player in the NBA. And he's a fantastic scorer, averages, over 25 points per game for however many years now. And I think he hasn't gotten as much playmaking opportunity the last couple of years with the emergence of Sabonis's playmaking ability. But I think on the Spurs, he gets the ball in his hands a little bit more. He can show off that playmaking ability that he showed off in his first few years of his career. Not to say that he's been a bad playmaker by any means, but we'll definitely see those assist numbers rising up, kind of back to that 7 to 8 number that he was at earlier on in his career. But I think that the Spurs should be all in on trying to get De'Aaron Fox, because I don't know where you're going to find a point guard with that kind of ability to both score and pass the basketball. And I think that is the type of player that, paired with Victor Wembanyama, becomes an unstoppable duo.
Plus, you got to also add in the fact that if De'Aaron Fox does go to the Spurs, the offense is able to take less of the pressure, is able to take some pressure off of Wemby. A lot of defenders won't be able. Wemby's still going to be the main target for a lot of defenses to just focus on, but they're going to have to look at De'Aaron Fox as well. So far this season, the Spurs have been playing basketball to where if Wemby can't get it done, they're not going to win that game. And they don't have another scorer to compare with that. Devin Vassell hasn't took that step yet. Stephon Castle is more of a playmaker that we've seen during his time at UConn. So adding a De'Aaron Fox does make that team special, but I don't know if it will bring them to the playoffs. Sure, but I don't know if that really changes the landscape for that team overview right now compared to what he would do right now if he went to Houston. Because Houston's in a way better spot for him.
It would be a move that it definitely gets you the playoffs this year, and it opens up a lot for them this upcoming offseason because De'Aaron Fox has one more year on his contract. I mean, right now the Spurs have 7 players averaging 10 points per game. There's a lot of guys on that team that can knock down shots, and I think having a guy in De'Aaron Fox who can combine that scoring and playmaking ability opens up a lot for that offense, and then it also enables them to go out in the offseason. They can say, okay, we need another guy, and we're very comfortable with our depth, because I don't think that CP3 is that guy right now that's going to, make that difference for them in the way that De'Aaron Fox would, because defenses do not care about Chris Paul. At 39 years old, they do not care about Chris Paul. They'll let him shoot 1 million mid-range jumpers a game. He doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't look to score anymore. He just looks to throw the ball up to Wemby. But De'Aaron Fox, that 2-man game of him and Wemby is going to be insane, because Wemby is all due respect to Sabonis, who I think is still an incredibly underrated player. Defenses care a lot more about Wembanyama than they do about Sabonis. You have to worry about a lot more when it comes to Wembanyama. So that 2-man game would be absolutely ridiculous. And then that is a team that I would think come this offseason will be very aggressive. And then I think they'll position themselves very nicely for a potential championship caliber team next season in the West.
I 100% agree with all those facets, but I can also say the same thing about the Houston Rockets. They also have 10 players, they have 9 and 10 players that can score 10 points a game. And also they have prospects that they could give up in a trade. Jabari Smith Jr. has been talked about as possible trade bait for the Houston Rockets, since there's only so many spots in that starting rotation that Jabari Smith is good, but he's not beating out Amen Thompson, and he's not beating out right now. So for the most part, from what I've been seeing, Atari Easton, but they still have Reece Shepard as well, their draft pick from last year, that they could also move, that's been spending a lot of time in the G League, where he's not really going to be seeing time up this season due to the fact of how well Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks have been playing, because they wanted to run Reece Shepard at the 2. I can see Fred VanVleet or Reece Shepard being traded right now.
Mm-hmm.
Those are 2 pieces that the Kings would take. If you add a pick on that, 100% that deal would be done. That deal would be done in 2K. if you put it at the max difficulty of trade logic. So 100% agree with
It's
the
just a
fact
shame
that
that Woody
Spurs-
Johnson's kids are not running
An
the
NBA
Sacramento
franchise.
Kings.
Yeah, then he'd already be shipped off.
It's just
Trade be
disappointing to
done.
see how the Kings just completely downward spiraled into this sort of madness, knowing that 3 years ago they were a 3 seed in the West.
They finally made the playoffs.
They had a home playoff series against Steph Curry, and they took them to 7 games with Steph Curry having to play out of his mind to beat them. This team, with also having the coach of the year as well with Mike Brown, this
Who's
team
gone
looked
now.
like it was set. Keegan Murray had an amazing first year as a rookie. He was shooting almost 40% from 3 that year. Well, no, he was shooting over 43. He was close to shooting 45% from 3. And they had Domantas Sabonis being a beast on the glass, still a perennial double-double guy. De'Aaron Fox was playing out of his mind. Malik Monk was playing great as well. And then they were able to add Keon Ellis last year, who also plays similar to Keegan Murray. This team looked like it was built to make this type of run. But I feel like that DeMar DeRozan signing completely just pushed this team back into what they're going into, because this offense can't work with their spacing if they have DeMar DeRozan, because he just can't shoot outside of 20 feet.
Yeah, this Sacramento Kings team is kind of a mess this season, because you go into the season with your expectations. You're not meeting them. You get rid of your 2 years ago, Mike Brown was coach of the year, and then they fire him. Suddenly, they seem to go on a bit of a hot streak, which you fire your coach of the year. You don't expect to see that happen. And now it seems like they've come back down to earth, back to reality. And now it's just like they're just kind of lost. I don't know if lost is the right word, but this just seems like 2 years ago, this team, obviously, as you said, the greatest aspirations in the world. 3 seed, first time making the playoffs since 2006, took Steph Curry's Warriors to Game 7, all sunshine and rainbows. And then it just didn't work out. Didn't work out.
I have a
very
better
well.
word for you. I wouldn't call it what you called it before. I would say they're more in limbo, because they're the way their roster is currently set up with their young players that are really productive still. They can't start a rebuild because they're going to win too many games, but they're not good enough to push for the playoffs. They're stuck in that play-in spot to where they could make it and make a run. The way I would compare this team is like they're similar to what the Miami Heat are in, but the difference is the Miami Heat were able to make the most out of what they got and were able to make it to the finals. I don't see this team making it out the play-in until I would say the next 3 years, honestly, because Domantas Sabonis is still going to get them in. Yeah,
definitely not looking up for the Kings. But on the subject of some teams that are definitely on the up and up, let's talk about the New York Knicks. When we come back from our beautiful break, you are currently listening to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM WCWP.
The classics live here on LIU Public Radio 88.1 FM and WCWP.org. Tune in to the Rockin' Sunday Show with Neil Lana every Sunday afternoon from 12 to 2 p.m. We bring you classic rock and 80s pop. You'll hear everything from Madonna to the Beatles. The Rockin' Sunday Show every Sunday afternoon from 12 to 2 p.m. here on LIU Public Radio 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Hey, it's me, Jay Mirabli. Catch me Sundays 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on 88.1 FM, WCWP, and WCWP.org for the DFK Classic Rewind. It's 90s and 2K dance anthems, classic disco, freestyle, heartbeat love songs, and so much more. Plus, what would DFK be without the DJ Spotlight Mix? It goes down here at 88.1 FM, WCWP, LIU Public Radio.
They saw Denver, Mike. They set the record at the most points. Yep. So Denver will be seeking revenge for sure.
Knicks have won their 4th in a row. They pulverized one of the NBA's best team and the Grizzlies.
You are listening to the Sports Shark Tank on 88.1 FM WCWP. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM WCWP.org. I'm your host, Brendan Kaufman, joined by Donovan Gibbs and Joe Simile. Gentlemen, the New York Knicks, our parentheses New York Knicks, the Knicks of New York, as they were, graciously defeated the Memphis Grizzlies, one of the better teams in the Western Conference this season, by a dominant score of, I believe, 143 to 106.
Yep.
Overall, one of the best looking games I've seen from the Knicks all season, personally. But gentlemen, how are we feeling about the Knicks after this absolutely fantastic victory?
Yeah, I mean, this has been one of the best wins that this Knicks team has gotten. Tom Thibodeau has gone over the last 4 games to that 9-man rotation that we've been begging for on this show for weeks now, and it has worked wonders. The guys look very energetic, very well rested. That was between OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges, for the both of them. That was one of the best defensive games both of them have played this season for the Knicks. Mikal Bridges had 28, Cat had 24, Jalen Brunson only needed 20. And he only played 25 minutes, which frankly might be the lowest that he's played in any game that he has not gotten injured in his time with the Knicks. And the bench was great. Deuce McBride, Precious Achiuwa, Campaign all had fantastic games. Landry Shamet was there, at least taking up time. Not his best game, but
he showed up.
He showed up.
He cashed his check.
He cashed his check. He laced him up. He was out there. He let the other guys sit for a few minutes. And, in garbage time, we got to see some of the rookies show out. Tyler Kolek, Ariel Hucktua-Porty. I mean, it was, just a great time. And Deuce McBride, I don't know if you guys saw, had a ferocious dunk off of a beautiful, beautiful dime piece from Tyler Kolek. And I cannot wait for the day that Tyler Kolek earns real minutes on this team.
I 100% agree with you, due to the fact that just the Knicks, one of the things going into this game was that they had a lot of good wins. This was their first good win against a team that was above 500. A lot of their wins so far this year were against teams below 500. They had a bunch of riskier times against Western Conference teams that were good. I still remember when they were just getting absolutely torched against the OKC Thunder just 2 weeks ago. So being able to go 7-3 in their last 10, and just the contributions that Karl Anthony Towns is doing for this Knicks team, I haven't seen a center play like this for the Knicks, or like a big man play like this for the Knicks since, I would give you Amari Stoudemire, because Amari Stoudemire had that effect. But the way that he's scoring the ball, being a 50-40 guy right now as a 7-footer, is absolutely insane to me. And it just blows my mind that the Timberwolves would trade that away to keep Rudy Gobert. But this Knicks team looks great. This was an important win, and I'm happy to see that Tom Thibodeau changed up the system. It was going to come down to who's going to break first. The Nova Knicks that could play 48 minutes a game with no sweat on them, or Tom Thibodeau having to lower the minutes for his stars, knowing that the regular season is a marathon, not a sprint. And Tom Thibodeau was able to change up the way that he does his rotation. He was able to add another player, Deuce McBride. I will give my salutes to him as well. He's been amazing so far with his contributions off the bench, shooting. He's been shooting more. His three's been going down more and more so far this year. And you can't change the fact of Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby as well, playing his role. But Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns, those two are playing more rested. And the more rested they are, the better this Knicks team is going to be come April. Because I know that they're going to either be playing the Cavs or the Boston Celtics come playoff time. So the breaks that they're getting right now, these blowout wins, this offense has been absolutely prolific. The thing about Tom Thibodeau teams for the last couple of years was that they were more defensive-oriented, slower-paced teams. So seeing that they hit 140 in back-to-back games just is mind-blowing.
Yeah, as someone that was paying a lot of attention to the Knicks last season, I wouldn't say around this time, more close to playoff time, I witnessed the Tom Thibodeau coaching experience in full effect as they went into those playoffs. And it probably could have gone better for them if they just had a bit more depth on their bench, where it took a step back from the Tom Thibodeau system. I really like seeing this Knicks team with more than like 8 players playing in a game, more than like 8 players playing in a game. How many were playing last night? Was it like 11, 12? They got minutes?
If you're not including garbage time, it was 9.
Okay, well, I am including garbage time because I love me some garbage time.
In that case, it was 14.
Ooh, 14. That's 7 more than I was expecting out of a Tom Thibodeau-led team, if you ask me. But this Knicks team, I think the trade for Karl Anthony Towns, I was a little skeptical at first. Earlier in the season, I voiced my doubts as a certified, not necessarily as a certified Knicks expert, but obviously as just a guy, a standard guy. But honestly, he's really coming to his own. Mikal Bridges really came into his own. This team's just looking great. It's just a great looking team right now. Are they the best team in the NBA right now? I'm not going to say that. I'm a man of many takes. I'm not the craziest guy. I've seen 2 teams that are better, but they know how to get it done.
I wouldn't say they're the best team in the NBA right now, but during this stretch of time, I will fair to say that they are better than the Boston Celtics during this stretch of duration of time. Because
That was not one of the 2 teams.
The Celtics have been taking a step back. They're currently 13-11 in the last 24. They started off the year 19-5. So that team has taken a little bit of a step back. They are losing more games, and that's going to lead the Knicks to creep back in. They're currently the 3 seed right now. I remember last year they were the 3 seed till the last day of the season. They won a game, they bumped up to 2. Now, I can see this happening once again, but this time the Celtics going down to the 3 spot. This Knicks team is built for the playoffs. They are built to make it to a conference. They're built to make it out the second round. So they don't make it out the second round again. We're going to be on this show just absolutely confused. Joe's going to be crying. Nick's going to be both Joe's.
The New York Embiids.
But let me regain my composure. But this New York Knicks team is built to get out the second round, and that's great for New York. This team has what it takes. They have the offense, they have the defense, but it's just gonna come down to the fact that they don't play Boston till the second half of the year. Post All-Star break, they're going to have 2-3 more matchups with Boston, and they're going to have 2 more matchups with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Those are the games I'm going to be looking at for the regular season to see where this team stands, because the Cleveland Cavaliers have been scaring me a little bit, same as the Boston Celtics. So one of these 3 are going to make it out, because I don't see the Bucks doing it. I don't see the Pacers doing it. I definitely don't see the Heat doing it. They're currently in the 6th seed right now after their 2 overtime win against the Orlando Magic. But one of those 3 teams, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Boston Celtics, or New York Knicks, are going to make it out the East. Right now, I feel comfortable with saying that the Knicks have a chance to make it to the ECF, at least.
Yeah, I think that the Knicks right now are probably, one of, if not the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics in the East. I mean, right now, as has been the case the last couple of years, the East kind of runs through Boston. But I mean, I think that this team matches up as well as any team in the NBA does against the Celtics, especially with the kind of defensive performance that they put on last night. I mean, the Knicks had 20 steals and 7 blocks last night, and their defense, particularly on the wing, was seriously something special. I mean, OG Anunoby had 6 steals in that game, and I mean, Precious Achiuwa, credit to him, he had 4 steals and 2 blocks. And like I said, that wing tandem of OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges played a heck of a defensive game. And I think that this is a Knicks team that, when they play like this, when they play up to their full potential, which is what we've been hoping to see the entire year, they are legitimately frightening.
Nobody can beat them.
They are legitimately frightening. And, if I'm the Knicks front office, or, even myself as a Knicks fan, my one wish list item is they just need another wing off the bench. They need another guy they could throw in at the 3 or the 4, get some more rest time for OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart, whether that's like a Corey Kispert or a Cody Martin. I think they just need another guy they trust on the wing to eat up some of those minutes, because right now their whole bench right now consists of Precious Achiuwa, who has been forced to play the backup 5, and then it's 3 guards who are 6'2", 6'3", and 6'4". So
I have a question for you. Due to the fact of the dominance that Karl Anthony Towns has been showing us so far this season, when Mitchell Robinson comes back, is he going to fill in that backup 5 role?
I do think so. I think that he
probably
will fill up the backup 5 like he did when he was coming back from injury with Isaiah Hartenstein. And I think that we've seen – I think we'll see – I think that if Mitchell Robinson comes back and he can remain healthy, because that's the other big thing too, is that if you don't go out and get another guy, you're not hedging your bets very well. You are gambling on the fact that Mitchell Robinson will remain healthy through a playoff run, which is never a guarantee. And I think that in the case of Mitchell Robinson comes back and he is healthy, I think Precious Achiuwa probably fills up that backup forward role where he plays a lot of 4 next to Karl Anthony Towns like he did next to Isaiah Hartenstein, which I think works out a lot better than the Hartenstein pairing would just because of how prolific Karl Anthony Towns is from the perimeter. And so in that scenario, there wouldn't be a need for a backup wing. But at the same time, you have to hope that Mitchell Robinson is healthy and he's conditioned, because that's always a big thing with him, especially when coming back from injury. His conditioning usually needs months to ramp
That's
up
what
to where it
happened with
needs to
Lim
be.
last year.
Yeah, so that's why, if I'm the Knicks, I try to just find a wing that I could trust to play 12 minutes a game, play the 3 and the 4, just, eat up some time, play the end of the first quarter, between the third and fourth quarter, just
give your guys a breather.
Yeah, give them a breather, because right now the guys on the bench that Thibodeau trusts are short and they cannot play that wing spot, right? Josh Hart gets away with the forward spot because of his play style, but that's not Landry Shamet, that's not Miles McBride, that's not Cameron Payne. So, yeah, I think that this Knicks team, this is a win that really shows kind of the potential of the team, and I think it was an exciting matchup.
Yeah, speaking of exciting matchups, Wednesday, 7:30, the New York Knicks take on the Denver Nuggets. Another potentially big matchup for this Knicks team.
Yes, because I need to see Karl Anthony Towns play against other dominant bigs to make me feel more comfortable seeing that he can fill that role. Due to the fact of just how just lackluster the East is, the only bigs that he's going to see in the East is if he's healthy whenever he wants to play against the Knicks.
So
and then Kristaps Porzingis or Al Horford, or then Jared Allen or Evan Mobley, but they don't play the Cavs until the second half of the year. I like to see Karl Anthony Towns get these type of matchups right now, because it's definitely going to prepare him for the playoffs. Because looking right now, he might be the starting 5 for this team come playoff time. I said earlier in the year when they made that trade for Karl Anthony Towns, I could have saw him being Mitchell Robinson at the 5, then Karl Anthony Towns at the 4. I'm going to eat my words on that currently, depending on how Mitchell Robinson comes back in the second half of the season. But right now, he's going to be your option at the 5. We need to see him play against good 5s, because that's what he's going to see come playoff time. That second round is going to include a matchup of him against Al Horford or Porzingis, or him against a matchup of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley.
Here's the thing for me about that matchup, right, is, and I agree with what you're saying, but I wonder if, I know, again, this is like pipe dream hypothetical. If come playoff time, we were to get a Knicks-Nuggets series, I wonder if Cat would draw the Jokic matchup, especially come fourth quarter. And I see you're giving me side eyes here, Donovan, because you look at what the Knicks did against the Sixers last year. When they struggled to stop Joel Embiid, they put OG Anunoby on him, and OG Anunoby locked that down. OG Anunoby, when the Knicks get fried by big men, it's the OG Anunoby show, and that has been the case for the last year and a half. I mean, you could look into the numbers, you could watch the film. It'll surprise you, but OG Anunoby, that's what Tibbs does. He's guarded Joel Embiid. He's guarded Nikola Jokic. He's guarded Şengün. He's guarded Sabonis, and he's done a really good job on them. Now, granted, I don't think that's a 40 minutes a game matchup, but I think when you get into, crunch time, that's especially when you see that matchup. And I think that's really where the value of OG Anunoby comes as well, because I think that, given that OG has shown that, it gives Tibbs a lot more faith in playing Cat big minutes, because when he had Cat on the Timberwolves, he didn't have that option of you could stick Cat on someone else and somebody else is going to guard that 5. Whereas OG Anunoby has shown he's strong and he's long and he's such a good defender that he's able to take those matchups.
I know if we're still speaking the hypothetical sense, then I would have to see that matchup to believe that matchup, because seeing Nikola Jokic do what he did against Anthony Davis as his primary defender in the playoffs, I don't have any chance that OG Anunoby can match that.
Well, I don't have any faith that anybody can guard Nikola Jokic in the playoffs. I just want to throw that out there. I don't
especially not someone on the
way
Lakers.
You said lockdown. This man is currently averaging a triple-double as a center.
No, I don't think there's any human in the world that is going to stop Nikola Jokic in a playoff setting. I think Nikola Jokic is the best basketball player in the world. I think that Nikola Jokic is one of the best basketball players I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I don't think anyone is locking that down in the playoffs, especially. But I do wonder if that would be the matchup that Thibodeau goes to, because we have seen that. And I would almost begin to think that would be probably a better matchup in those crunch time situations, because we've seen OG Anunoby handle that type of pressure and handle that type of matchup, especially in the playoffs, and it's been very successful.
Yeah, hopefully this Wednesday matchup between those two, the Knicks and the Nuggets, is a close game, because I would love to see that matchup in the final 2 minutes. But right now, I want to see Cat do what he's done dominantly against these other centers in the East, do at least some of that to Jokic. That will make me a firm believer that Cat is built to be a playoff 5.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the three of us in here, we're built to be a playoff 3, and that will do it for our New York Knicks NBA discussion. And frankly, I'm feeling a bit steamed about it. So when we come back, we're going to let our anger out with another edition of Ticked Off Tuesday. You have been listening to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM, WCWP.org.
Did you know that the average person hits their afternoon slump at 3 p.m.?
I don't want to do anything. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of this place.
Well, I may have the solution. Hey, it's Jamie, host of Rock Elixir on LIU Public Radio that rocks, 88.1 FM, and WCWP.org. Rock Elixir is 2 hours of uplifting, feel-good music to get you through whatever the day throws at you. Rock Elixir, the cure for the afternoon slump. Mondays through Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. on LIU Public Radio that rocks, 88.1 FM, and streaming at WCWP.org. Rock Elixir, because music heals.
Don't know what music to listen to? Tired of the same old tunes on the radio? Jump on the Musical Genres Unlimited roller coaster every Sunday night from 9 p.m. to midnight with Kim Brandner. You will hear musical genres from new wave to New Orleans, rock to reggae, classical to pop, holiday to Hawaiian music, and more. All on 88.1 FM, LIU Public Radio, streaming on WCWP.org.
It's time to play the game. Time to play the game.
7 games earlier this month for conduct detrimental to the team, then 2 games for missing a team flight, and finally an indefinite suspension on Monday as he was set to return to face the Magic.
You're listening to the Sports Shark Tank on 88.1 FM and WCWP.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Sports Shark Tank here on 88.1 FM, WCWP. I'm your host, Brendan Kaufman, joined by Donovan Gibbs and Joe Simile. And we're all a little peeved here today, here on the Sports Shark Tank. Some a bit more than others. I would argue I'm actually the least angry. Based
mad.
on these
Mad.
I'm pretty mad, though, because here on Ticked Off Tuesday, we really like to get our anger out, get our rage off. And because these two are mad about very similar things, I'm going to go first. I'm going to talk about the NFL. Now, yesterday, our very own Dylan Kennelly, shout out to Dylan if you're watching.
Dylan is watching, and he's getting absolutely fried in the chat.
He had a moment.
Shouts out to Dylan.
He expressed some rage about the Kansas City Chiefs. And you know what? There is something about these Kansas City Chiefs that's really bugging me. It's not the fact. It has nothing to do with the refs. It has nothing to do with the fact that they just don't seem to lose anything. Because frankly, I think they're a well-coached team. Yeah, they get a lot of lucky, quote unquote, like they get a lot of calls their way, which is stupid. It's undeniably fairly stupid, but at the same time, I also feel like most of the time they end up being the better team at the end of the day, even though they have those penalties. But there's one man on the Chiefs that just enrages me just by not what he's doing, but rather what he's not doing. I want to talk about Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, if you just looked at him play, you would think this is the greatest quarterback I've ever seen play the game. You look at him and you see him make eye-dazzling throws. You see him. You see what he does with his legs. I understand, like sometimes he baits the defenders, but he goes a little crazy. Yeah, they're looking at me like I'm talking about when he runs. Talk about when he runs. But you know what Mahomes doesn't do? That would make me. I think the NFL would be so much better if Mahomes would try in the regular season. Because you know what's getting me ticked off? Watching Mahomes have the most pedestrian numbers in a regular season that you've ever seen, even though you know he can be so much better than that. He could put up MVP seasons with me as his top receiving threat. I don't understand why I have to watch Mahomes go like, oh, he's got 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions at the regular season with 1 rushing touchdown on pretty good efficiency. While you got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, all these other guys putting up monster seasons, yet they can't win anything. I just want if Mahomes was the greatest at all times, I would be so much more okay with the Chiefs winning all the time. But Mahomes doesn't try in the regular season. He just phones it in and they still win. Why can't he go bananas 8 mode all the time like a horse, ride the stallion into the sunset every season, get in there and just take care of business? Well, I want to see 50 touchdowns from Mahomes every season. Why can't he just do that for me? I can accept him making the AFC Championship and making it to the Super Bowl every season and all the Taylor Swift and all the things that the Chiefs do if Mahomes would just play up to his potential instead of being lazy. All right, that's all I got. Joe Simile, I hear you got something to say about Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, Brendan, first and foremost, I mean, that was really something. That was an all-time.
I brought back the horse. Anyone real long-time Shark Tank viewers remember the horse.
That was an all-time sports Shark Tank crash out there from you, Brendan. I don't know if I can match that energy.
You definitely will. I heard you rehearsing.
Look, I was not rehearsing, but Donovan and I, we were chit-chatting before the show as we do, and it seems though we are on different sides of the Jimmy Butler plane. And for me, I mean, Jimmy Butler, I think is acting frankly ridiculous. And I think that this is a situation with Jimmy Butler. It's not the first. It's not the second. It's not even the third time we've seen him do this, where he's unhappy with the play of his team, the team that, in this case especially, he is the leader of, and he throws a hissy fit in the media and in the locker room and requests a trade. And then he's now going on social media and acting like a baby and throwing a temper tantrum, acting like the victim for having repercussions of his own actions. I mean, this is the 4th time that Jimmy Butler has tried to force himself out of a city, out of a franchise, and the 3rd time that he's done it for a team that he forced himself to. And he takes no accountability. He's saying, oh, I'm not having fun playing basketball. And he's complaining about the team that he's on, the team that he chose to go to, the team that he is the leader of. And if you ask me, I think part of the issue with his last couple stops is that he's no longer the guy now. He's not the team's leading scorer. He's really not even the face of the team anymore. I mean, Tyler Hero, I think, is having I'm not even a Tyler Hero fan. I don't even like Tyler Hero. But Tyler Hero's play this season has far blown Jimmy Butler's out of the water. Jimmy Butler is having the worst year of his career since he's become a starter. And he's crying about it. I mean, he wants out. And I think it's ridiculous the way that he's going about it, and also just going on social media now and acting like he's some victim in all of this when he's just reaping the rewards of his own actions. I mean, it's frankly ridiculous, if you ask me.
I feel for Jimmy Butler.
There's no way you feel for Jimmy Butler.
I feel for Jimmy Butler due to the fact that the last 2 stops, okay, if we're going to talk about Minnesota, the reason why he mainly left Minnesota is because Karl Anthony Towns was not the player that he is now, and Andrew Wiggins was not the player that he was during that run against Golden State. If we're talking about the 76ers, Ben Simmons was a definite factor. Daryl Morey decided to pay Tobias Harris the money that they could have gave Jimmy. That's why during that game 4 against the Sixers back in 22, he was screaming, going back into the locker room, Tobias Harris over me. There's a reason why he left. He was being undervalued. He didn't mind being the second guy to Embiid. He understood that this was Joel Embiid's team. But outside of that, he was the only help during that playoff run. What did Tobias Harris or Ben Simmons do during that playoff run against the Brooklyn Nets or the Toronto Raptors? If you can prove me that, I will 100% agree. Yes, he's the problem. Pat Riley was 100% right. But if we're talking the Miami Heat right now from 2019-2020 bubble season up to now, Heat culture is dead. There is no Heat culture. Heat culture is depending on a star to take you to that glory land when he doesn't have the teammates around him to help. Bam Adebayo has not been playing well this year. He was on a tear last year. I will give you that. Jimmy Butler got hurt at the end of the year. Jaime Jaquez had a great end of the year. He had a decent game against the Boston Celtics in game 1 during that opening round series. Tyler Hero, he did what he needed to do during that bubble series as well as a rookie. But outside of those three players, we want to see the rest of the notable Heat signings, free agency wise or trade wise, since 2020. Max Strus, Caleb Martin, Goran Dragic, Victor Oladipo, Terry Rozier, who doesn't do anything so far, Nikola Jovic, DeLon Wright, Josh Richardson, Thomas Bryant, who decided to hit threes the minute he left Miami. Pele Lawson, Zion Pullen, and Khalil Ware with who they drafted so far this year, who's mainly going to be a lob threat from what I've seen him play. Jimmy Butler has had no help.
Did you just call Khalil Ware a lob threat?
I saw him do a crazy dunks against the.
Are you talking about 43% from three shooter Khalil Ware, who shoots from all over the court? Donovan, is that who we're talking about?
My apologies to Khalil Ware. He's a shooter.
You're not familiar with his game, clearly.
Fully. I was able to watch a game against. I saw him ball out. But let me continue my point. With that supporting crew that he has had during those 5 years, they were a 1 seed. They made it to the finals twice. Once as an 8 seed, the first time in NBA history that's happened since this was the first time in NBA history that an 8 seed made it to
the Knicks did it in 99.
Knicks did it.
Second time in NBA history since the 90s with an 8 seed making it to the NBA finals. And he was the main person to make this happen. During his span with the Miami Heat, 2019-2020, he averaged, we want to talk about points, we can talk about points per game. I'm down to do that. So far, he played 33 minutes a game. He was shooting 45 from the field his first year in Miami. He balled out during that bubble playoff series against the Indiana Pacers, against the Bucks, against the Boston Celtics. And he did everything he could to bring that team to game 6. That's why we have that infamous photo of him literally drained of all of his energy trying to keep this team afloat. Then we look at 2021, the comeback year. That team went to the first seed. He was 21 points per game scored. The 2019-2020, 19 points per game.
He's
21-22.
He
21 points per game.
That year 22-23,
22 points per game. 23-24. He got injured at the end of the year, 20 points a game. And right now, 17 points a game because he's unhappy. They haven't made any moves. They were supposed to get Damian Lillard last year. Why did that not happen? They didn't want to trade away Tyler Hero. There was talks in 2019 of other stars trying to come in. Kevin Durant completely avoided the Miami Heat for some reason. LeBron only stayed there for his couple of years. I get that he wanted to go back to Cleveland, but that was an ugly ending as well. And he didn't have his fun times with him and Pat Riley were at each other's necks outside of the 2 times when they won a championship. Pat Riley and star players outside of Dwayne Wade, who was drafted there, have multiple occasions of just having disdain for Pat Riley. He's not the GM that you go to for a team. And I get the Heat culture, but the Heat culture is built around a star and a bunch of other role players outside of the Heatles from 2010 to 2014 when they had the big 3 of LeBron, D Wade, and Chris Bosh. But outside of that, what is Heat culture?
Donovan, you're just circling the drain on the point though, right? I mean, you say that the only one that it worked for was Dwayne Wade, who Dwayne Wade was there for what 45% of the Heat's franchise history. And you talk about, there's a history of players being unhappy with Pat Riley. There's an even bigger history of Jimmy Butler being unhappy with teams. Jimmy Butler doesn't like where he goes anywhere he goes. He goes there, right? He has a little honeymoon phase where the team does well, right? And then he has like a good playoff series. And then all of a sudden things start to stink up. Notably, Jimmy's averaging 17 points per game, which is the lowest he's averaged in over a decade. He's having a stinker of a year by his standards. He's not playing defense the way that he used to. He's getting old. The tires are falling off. And guess what? He's unhappy because he can't lead his team to wins. And all of a sudden, it's now on the team. It's not on the star player. He's one of the only players in the NBA that does this. He's the player that does it the most. He has a problem. He is a habitual trade requester. It's nasty, dude. Damian Lillard didn't do this, right? Luka Doncic, he struggled to get wins. He didn't do this. Devin Booker, it took him so long to get to the finals. He didn't do this, right? No, I mean, why is Jimmy Butler the only one that has requested a trade out of every stop he's been to? It's him and it's James Harden.
So you're telling, first off, what you saying that Tyler Hero is the face of the Heat was absolutely blasphemous as well. But we're just not gonna talk about that point. But Jimmy Butler doing what he's done for the last 5 years, he's been able to take this team to the finals and carry. But now all of a sudden it's his fault for not being happy here since he has no other support. It's crazy to me.
He's not good enough. That's the problem that he has. He's not good enough to get it done. And he doesn't want people to realize that. He wants to blame it on the team when he's not that guy. He had one lucky finals appearance in a very, very easy East that year. In a season surrounded with COVID where half the players missed half the years with COVID. Outside of that, Jimmy Butler's playoff success, he has not led a team to the finals in that manner.
So 20. Which year's the lucky year? 22?
When he went to the finals,
in 22,
which was 22.
Oh, okay. Rap show.
Yeah, you know, I think you know what? I think that'll do it for the Sports Shark Tank. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure to join us tomorrow, 5 to 6 p.m. Be talking on the show. I'm your host, Brendan Kaufman, joined by Donovan Gibbs and Joe Simile. And thank you for tuning in.